Oh, it's Friday night. It's Friday night. It's Friday night. We got DFS on the slate. We got week 3 that we are ready to crush. And there is no person in the entire world that I'd rather do it with. What's going on, everybody? I am Chase Vernon. I am joined over here by Jordan Vanek. Jordan, how you doing, man? How's it going over there for the 33rd team? What you got going on, man?
It's going well. Working on the Saturday/Sunday articles for this main slate, trying to figure out exactly where I'm going. I've kind of got close to the lean, but as we get to see more accurate projections from a ownership standpoint and just where the field is playing, that's when I can actually zero in on some plays. But for the most part, I think it's a really, really fun slate this weekend. A lot of really interesting lineups being built.
Dude, I'm excited for this slate. This slate's a little different, right? Like last week, we had a lot of low-scoring games that were projected to be that way. So was like you looked at your games and you're like, man, I'm only really excited to play the one game. That one game was Jacksonville, Kansas City. It was a major letdown. Meanwhile, we had some other games absolutely explode. I mean, Washington, Denver was, I'm going to be honest with you, man. That was a game that I was staying away from. I didn't want to play Washington, Denver. Big mistake. They put up 68 points, I think. So it was absolutely nuts for Washington, Denver. Both we thought more of a defensive, centric team put up that high point total. This week, there's some lower scoring games, but the higher scoring ones are ones that you absolutely, might want to get a hold of, right? I mean, is there that game that's kind of like a red flag that could be on the high scoring end for you?
I don't know necessarily about the red flag. I think that this week last week I actually avoided that Kansas City Jacksonville game, luckily, because I see the Jacksonville line and I'm terrified of it. This week, I think from like I guess game theory perspective or just overall what is expected, Detroit and Atlanta is one that I think is Gibbs and Bijan dominated. In the way that Atlanta plays, it's like they're both just so slow. So like the point total is high. If they get to that point total, it's going to be on the ground. And if it's on the ground, that's just a weird way to do it. I don't know many games I could think of off the top of my head where it's just two running backs going at it.
Man, it's interesting, right? Because you see on the DFS slate for DraftKings, you see that big red number 4 for the Atlanta rush defense. But Jahmyr Gibbs just seems like the token, to a potential like Millie Maker type winner where he has the backfield to himself outside of Craig Reynolds. We dealt with a bunch of injuries throughout the week. So like Amon-Ra St. Brown outside of today wasn't able to fully practice. So it feels like the game script is just going to go straight with Jahmyr Gibbs and that running game and going to end up running it back with Bijan. It's very interesting for DFS purposes, which is why we are here, people. We are here to cover DFS. Jordan, are you ready to get started on the slate? You ready to start building some lineups and letting people in on your secrets?
Yeah, no, I'm down to start building some lineups. Excited to talk about some Jahmyr Gibbs, some Javonte, maybe Tyreek Hill later. We'll see where we get going.
All right, let's do this. Oh, man, we are over here. We are ready to build some lineups. We are ready to give you some secret tips that we believe are going to win you big time money for week 3. And the way that we do this is we go through 3 different segments, right? We're going to give you guys for the first segment players that we think are going to be in the majority of our lineups, see at least 30 to 40% ownership minimum, guys that we want to just plug in and play because we think they're going to dominate. The second segment, we're going to talk about some guys that we do not like. We do not want anywhere close to our lineups. We're fading these players. They're not going to touch a single one of our lineups. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the sleepers last. In between each one of these segments, we will be building a lineup. So, Jordan, let's get this one kicked off. Let's talk about some players that you absolutely want in your lineups. And let's go ahead and start with the running back that has been somewhat subpar for DFS. You just think that he's going to absolutely smash this week.
Javonte Williams. I love the mini stack of Javonte and Tyreek Hill. I know Jalen Waddle practiced today, but missed all week. Not sure if he's going to suit up on Sunday, but as of right now, I'm expecting it to be just Tyreek Hill. I want my exposure to Tyreek Hill. I don't think that this is a game where it's like, oh, Jalen Waddle's targets are vacated. It's going to River Craycraft or it's going to Braxton Berrios. It's Mike McDaniel's just going to get his best player the ball. He's done it throughout this entirety of the Dolphins, and it's been simple. It's been Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Everybody was worried last year. He's a run game coordinator from San Francisco. How is he going to throw the ball? Tua doesn't have the arm to do it. Well, Tua's got an 11 ADOT right now with an average time to throw of 2.2. Vance Joseph blitzes a ton, which is going to bring a lot of man coverage in this game. If he tries to blitz at that rate, good luck covering Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill can have multiple big plays after the catch. I know there's rumors of, oh, Pat Surtain's going to shadow him. You can't. He's going to motion you to death. He's going to motion him across, back, and across on one play. And then on the flip side, Mike McDaniel has some insight that most coaches don't. Pat Surtain Jr., his father, or Pat Surtain Sr. is on the Miami Dolphins coaching staff. What better way to know what your son's best talent is, worst talent, whether, having that insight there. So I'm expecting Tyreek Hill to have a massive day. I know he's coming in popular, but he's just one of those guys that I'm terrified if he's in a good matchup and he's popular. And I think he could be a little bit lower considering everybody trying to get to Jefferson in that Minnesota game. And then Javonte Williams is a run back because Vic Fangio wants you to run. I know the Patriots didn't do it successfully in their game. However, New England's offensive line had multiple guys like first time playing together. You could see some just miscommunication. And Christian Wilkins and Zach Dealer just did their job and they showed up. This one, I think Sean Payton's running scheme with Javonte is just going to be an easy path to getting some points, and he's going to catch some passes, and Russell Wilson won't be able to throw it deep in this one.
That's the key, right? Is getting Javonte Williams involved in the receiving game. It's something that they have to do, and they have to pretty much focus on. We do have a few different stacks we can go on. I know the Vikings-Chargers game is extremely sexy. I'm loving some Mike Williams. I'm loving some Justin Jefferson. But let's go ahead and let's start building a lineup to get this week 3 kicked off. You ready for this? Let's do it. All right. Let me go ahead and make sure this layout looks good, that we don't hide Jordan's face, of course. There we go. We have his beautiful mug right there below mine. Let's go ahead and start this lineup off. Now, Jordan, I'm going to let you pick the formation that we're going to build. Are we going to start with our quarterback wide receiver stack? Are we starting with a running back? How do you want to do this? Do you want to go ahead and get in your guys you've already brought up while we're here?
So when I build, I usually tend to start with my main stack. So I would start with that quarterback position. I don't know if you want to try to build one of the popular ones with like the Chargers, Justin Herbert side of things, or if you want to just plug in where one of the ones that I brought up where it feels easy to just play Mahomes and Kelsey this week.
Yeah, honestly, like Mahomes and Kelsey are two of my favorite plays. It makes it very difficult to get like Tyreek and Javonte Williams, and well, maybe not Javonte Williams as much, but definitely Tyreek Hill into a matchup with that without just playing a bunch of flyers. So maybe we want to save that for the last segment where we have all of our sleepers, right? Where we can bring up, the sleepers that we discussed.
Got it.
Let's go ahead and let's pivot more towards maybe either the Chargers Minnesota game. I know that you brought up, was it Dak and CeeDee Lamb as one of your favorite stacks as well?
Yeah.
Oh, listen to that one.
Okay. Dak and CeeDee Lamb. I mean, Dak Prescott being cheaper than Kirk Cousins in a matchup where they're going to score probably as much as Minnesota does, even if that Minnesota Chargers game shoots out. And the last time that Jonathan Gannon played a Dak Prescott-led team, Dak Prescott threw for 340 and I think 4 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, and that was the Eagles last year, who had Darius Slay and James Bradbury and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and all the defensive line that had historic sack rates. So for me, onslaughting just Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and even, Brandon Cooks later would be like the way that I can construct that. And as far as a run back, we just saw Trayvon Diggs go down. I know Hollywood Brown has been up and down, but for me, he's the run back in this one because the Cowboys don't have the speed at the cornerback position without Diggs. And in this matchup, it's Hollywood Brown. He's 4,900. He's the number 1 receiver on that Arizona team. Cowboys give you a lot of man coverage. They obviously get to the quarterback quick, but Hollywood Brown can get downfield quick. And if he beats his man off the line of scrimmage, then you're looking at Josh Dobbs throwing it up to him. And hopefully he looks as good as he did this past weekend. And Hollywood Brown has a big catch in this one.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it makes me a little bit nervous. I'm not going to lie to you because I actually like Trayvon Diggs being in the lineup more often. We know Trayvon Diggs bites on those doubles all the time because he does have the speed to make up for it. Up against Hollywood Brown, he does not have the speed to make up for it. So I was kind of hoping to be in this matchup. Obviously, that's not the case after the injury happened earlier this week. But let's go ahead. Let's put Hollywood Brown into this lineup as the run back. I don't think it's going to be James Conner. There's going to have to, you're going to have to force reason for Dak Prescott to throw the ball. But I do like Dak Prescott because the Cardinals are okay up against some running backs thus far in the season. And although, Tony Pollard has, I think, the most touches inside of the 5-yard line for running back. Maybe the Cardinals can get a couple shutdowns, and that's going to lead to some touchdowns for Dak Prescott. I actually like running Jake Ferguson along with this setup as well. But let's go ahead. We got Dak Prescott. We got CeeDee Lamb. We got Marquise Brown. Where do we want to go from this one? We have about 5,100 left to play. You want to go to the DST just to have a placeholder? How you feeling?
We can go DST to have a placeholder. There's a few of the cheaper ones that I've definitely had some interest in. I think the chalk defense and cheap is probably going to be that Jets defense against New England. It seems like New England wants to throw the ball this year. Obviously, we haven't exactly seen them in a neutral game script or facing an offense that isn't. I think they've just had a gauntlet so far to begin the year with facing Philly and then having to play the Dolphins, which is not two offenses you want to face this year. So defensively, if you want to just plug in the chalk, I'm fine with playing the Jets defense with this build.
Yeah, let's plug it in. Let's just see how it feels. We'll ease it in, slide it right into where it should be, and we'll see how it feels. And if we don't like it later, then we'll switch off. But let's go ahead and let's plug it in, and let's get to the rest of this lineup. Now, we did bring up the tight end position. We talked about Travis Kelce being one of those guys that you love to have in these lineups. Jake Ferguson makes a lot of sense just because we're betting against Tony Pollard at this point. How are you feeling about the tight end position, or do you want to hop to running back?
So for tight end, I think Jake Ferguson with this lineup makes so much sense at the price. I would love to trade Travis Kelce. However, I think looking at 5,600 remaining, I want to play a 3,500 or 3,600 correlation play here and get all the touchdowns of Dak Prescott. I want him to throw 4. Yes. And I would love CeeDee Lamb and Ferguson to have both 2 each. That would be a very good way to win a GPP. So now that bumps us up to 6,100, which allows us to play the players we want to play.
Yeah, now it gets sexy. Now this is just fun from on out. We just get to have a blast throwing, it's like throwing money, at the dancers at the club, right? You just get to toss out whatever you want, right? That's what we're doing right here. And this gives us an excellent opportunity to do so. Now, I will say I guess the theme of this week is now we have to take like what we've seen over the past 2 weeks and apply the stuff that we want to continue to see, right? As we move forward, is this going to be a trend or was this just trending at the time, right? So in the first couple of weeks, we saw, the Millie Maker winner pay up for running back. Last week, we saw them pay down because of the injuries and they were able to come away with a couple steals. Man, the next steal that's on the docket is Jerome Ford, who, spoiler alert, is going to be in our next segment. But let's go ahead and let's give a little bit of a taste of the guys that we're fading in the next segment and talk a little bit about Jerome Ford. Is this a guy that we think we can play in? Would we rather pivot over to Joshua Kelly? Which way are you feeling for the running back position?
I do not have any interest in Jerome Ford. I know he looked good against the Steelers. Fun fact about the Steelers, with Cam Hayward on the field as the defensive tackle interior, just the way the energy he brings and the presence he has, the Steelers give up like 3.8 or 4.0 yards per carry over the last 2 years. With him off the field over the last 2 years, that number jumps up to 5.4 yards per carry. The Steelers are just a bad run defense. That is just what they are with Cam Hayward out of the lineup. I have no interest in playing Jerome Ford because of how good he looked there. And then you flip to the matchup this week, Tennessee Titans. Vrabel wants you to throw it. He does not want you to run the ball. If you're running the ball successfully, that's just not Vrabel's MO. He's a linebacker. He's one of those dudes that was a part of that style of play. He's not going to let you run the ball up the middle or towards the outsides. And fun fact, Jerome Ford is not Nick Chubb. It's not just, he's going to be that guy. It's just not how it works. It's not how that works.
I love Jerome Ford. I love Jerome Ford. I just don't want him this week.
Yeah.
Jamie brings up in the comments, of course. If you guys are listening on the podcast, make sure y'all tune into the YouTube channel, of course. Jamie brings up the fact that I always talk about you just don't run against the Titans. You just don't do it. It's not something that you want to do. Last year, they allowed 2 games over 100 yards rushing for both running backs combined, for all running backs combined. The only time they allowed a game over that was week 1 of the 2022 season. This year, we're seeing the same trend. Jeffrey Simmons is not a joke, man. He is not a joke. Jeffrey Simmons is one of the best run defensive tackles we've seen in decades. I mean, this dude is an absolute monster. He swallows running backs whole. You just don't play running backs up against Jeffrey Simmons and the rest of the Tennessee Titans. Meanwhile, they allow you to pass all over him. So yes, Jerome Ford is a fade. Little spoiler alert for the section we have coming up. And I see your Beebs in the trap. Yes, we will make them dance with the rest of our remaining dollars. But let's go ahead and let's pick a running back that we do actually want to pivot to. Which running back were you feeling? You brought up Javonte Williams. You want to try and go with that?
Yeah, we could try to fit Javonte Williams in this build. It's Javonte Williams is a really good leverage play off of who's playing Tyreek Hill and also Josh Kelly at 5,400. He kind of steers away from the chalk, so we can plug in Javonte Williams and see if we can plug in Tyreek Hill as well.
So I did that. I put in Tyreek Hill. It's a little bit heady on that. Sorry, I just wanted to see what we were left with, and we're left with $4,950. There's a player that I think we can fit into this lineups, and he was my sleeper last week. I said, if you don't play him, you're ridiculous. He was in 90% of my lineups last week. I'm not even exaggerating. He was in 90% of my lineups, and that was Tank Dell. And Tank Dell comes in this week a little bit more owned, a little bit higher on the cost, right? But he has a Jacksonville team that they're most likely going to be down on and going to have to pass. We've seen CJ Stroud just unload the ball over his first 2 rookie games of his career. I mean, could Tank Dell fit into this and give us a viable running back, or would you rather just see what we have at running back at 5K and see if we can get a wide receiver at 5K?
No, I don't mind playing Tank Dell at all, especially in this build. Tyson Campbell's one of the better corners in football right now. He's playing high-level football with the way he's reading patterns and just kind of reacting to it. So I was all over Nico Collins last week. He was one of my favorite receivers on the slate. This week, I don't want anything to do with Nico Collins because Tyson Campbell is most likely going to be covering him for majority of that game. So Tank Dell fits nicely into this build. He's in a one-off that I have no problem getting to because we don't have the money to get up to Mr. Travis Etienne. But other than that, I have no problem playing him in this build.
Yeah, I mean, we still have some money there, right? We have a running back left that we need to fill this hole. Okay, we're at 6,300 in that dollar amount. So when we go to 6,300, James Conner, we already talked about. We don't really want to play that. Kenneth Walker makes a lot of sense up against Carolina. I think he might be a little bit chalky, but he can still be there. We have Miami, or Raheem Mostert for Miami up against Denver, who, dude, the guy's been a baller, right? He's been a baller. And now all he has behind him is a chain.
Yep.
After we lose, Savin Ahmed. So, which, by the way, I like a chain. I love a chain. So I'm not taking that away from him, but I'm just saying there's one guy less back there. Brian Robinson, who went off last week. How are we feeling about this area right here? Are you excited to be in the 6K range, or is this a range you want to try and avoid as one of the last guys?
I wish we had just, a few $100 more just to get to Jahmyr Gibbs. But looking at the defenses that you'd pivot to get off the Jets, it's not pretty to say the least. So at this price range, I think the way that I would approach it is by playing the one-off with Kenneth Walker. Walker didn't run well against Detroit, but he was pretty much the guy for the goal line. He was used all over that side of the ball. And against Carolina Panthers, Shaq Thompson went down, and is a Carolina Panthers fan. We're trying to adjust for that secondary loss of J.C. Horn. It's just a nightmare. I know Jamal Williams didn't play well in that first half before he went out for injury. Then we got to see Tony Jones. None of those guys are explosive runners. They're more power or just we're going to get you 3 or 4 yards. Kenneth Walker could break a few against the Panthers. So I don't mind Kenneth Walker at that price.
Yeah, I actually really love Kenneth Walker, but I will be devil's advocate right now. I mean, we have 3 defenses in the bottom 4 in terms of pricing, right? We have the Colts, Commanders, Cardinals, and Bears all at the bottom 4. All 3 of the 4 teams are scoring over 10 points a game or 10 or more points a game. There's not a single defense on the entire slate outside of the Cowboys that's scoring more than the bottom 3 defenses are. Like, what's going on here? Is this something that we can take advantage of because we just think so lowly of these defenses, or so highly of the offenses that they're playing, that maybe there could be a letdown, such as Josh Allen throwing some interceptions or taking some sacks up against Commanders? Commanders are coming off hot.
Yeah, I mean, I would have, out of all those defenses, the Commanders is the one that I would go to just because their defensive line outmatches the Buffalo Bills offensive line. And like the Raiders didn't have the defensive line to do what they needed to do. But if I had to say, like, the Commanders defensive line is probably one of the most talented in the NFL. Chase Young is still working, or Chase Young is still working his way back. And he actually had some plays in the first game last week. So if you want to go down to that Commanders defense,
messy weather conditions. We got I'm sitting right in the middle of it. We got a tropical storm coming through. It shouldn't be all the way to DC until 8:00 on Saturday night. You know, it's an early game. Like, it makes some sense. So, I mean, how much is it worth? Would you rather go with Kenneth Walker and your Jets defense, or would you rather go with Jahmyr Gibbs and the Washington defense?
I think Jahmyr Gibbs has a way higher ceiling, and defenses in DFS never matter. That's just, they can get you the touchdown, but touchdowns are very random. Touchdowns don't happen every week. And at the end of the day, we've seen Josh Allen look bad against the defense before. So it wouldn't surprise me if he looked bad in this one. And getting Jahmyr Gibbs just always feels great.
We're doing it, man. We're doing it. We're putting Jahmyr Gibbs in the lineup. All right, so we have Dak Prescott, Javonte Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, CeeDee Lamb, Marquise Brown, Tyreek Hill, Jake Ferguson, Tank Dell, and the Commanders defense. We are putting this in to the 100K single entry lineup for $12. You feeling good? You want me to hit enter?
Yeah, you can hit enter. That's a good lineup to play.
Boom. All right, we are entered into this one. You guys can take some notes. Make sure you bring out the pens and paper. I still take notes by pen and paper. I'm not even kidding you. Like, all of my stuff. You've always been a spreadsheet guy. You were sending me spreadsheets 3 years ago before I even knew what a spreadsheet actually was. Oh, I love that. I love that. All right, let's go ahead. And before we go on to this next segment, I just would love to hear a word from our sponsors.
Oh, I see it every day online, every single day. Hey, that looks like a great fantasy team in an 8-team league. Oh, wish I could be in a league with you, right? Well, guess what? Now you can respond with, sure, let's play on Bettle. That's the beauty of this platform. This new Bettle platform standardizes all position scoring. So you just load your team and you challenge your friend, your colleague, Twitter troll, and you can browse other teams and issue challenges. Bettle is revolutionizing fantasy football. And with code UNDERWORLD, you get a $100 instant deposit match plus a free $10. So even if you deposit $20, you get $50. Think about that. So go to Bettle.com. The code is UNDERWORLD. Bettle.com. The code is UNDERWORLD. Or click a link in the description. It's fun to be right.
It's fun to be right. It's fun, right? Go check out Bettle, everybody. And let's go ahead and let's get started on our next lineup. But before we do, Jordan, we got some guys that we want to fade. We got some guys that we don't want anywhere close to our lineups. And we already talked about Jerome Ford. You also brought up Nico Collins to an extent, but give us a little bit more insight to that as to why Nico Collins, you think he's going to face that single coverage? Why do you think that he's not going to have the opportunity to maybe move to the other side of the field? Why don't motion him? Anything?
Well, they're not going to. He's not the receiver that you would do that necessarily with. I think Tank Dell gets that role in this matchup. Tank Dell is a little bit more shifty, and if you watch that game against the Indianapolis Colts, the movement he has to get in and out of his breaks is second to none. In the Senior Bowl, I got to see it firsthand. I got to see it up close. Being able to watch him run routes and then change the way that he gets off the line of scrimmage, way that his releases look the same every single time, but he can cut a little bit different than anybody else. As far as Nico Collins, again, it's just the idea that you're going to want to put Tyson Campbell on him. I know that corners in today's NFL don't necessarily shadow, but Nico Collins has made his living on the perimeter and on these in-breaking routes. The Colts' boundary corners are probably the worst in the NFL. That's just the way it is. If that game has good weather, Zay Flowers will be in a lot of my lineups, but as of right now, it's kind of to be determined whether that actually holds true or not. Because again, I played Calvin Ridley in pretty much every build I had week 1. Week 2, I went to Nico Collins, and now week 3, I'll be playing Zay Flowers. Sometimes trends matter, and in this one with the Colts, the guy that got suspended, Isaiah Rodgers, on top of the players that they lost, they just don't have the players who can defend on the boundary.
Yeah, I mean, and they're missing their top corner this week potentially. I mean, their whole secondary is extremely depleted. So I love that take, man. I'm down with it, and I'm ready to build another lineup. Are you?
Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah, I guess we can do it.
Let's do it.
One other guy that I do want to talk about real quick fading is actually Chris Olave. Chris Olave actually has a very tough matchup. Last week, he was barely able to make it happen, on that big catch. At least be DFS relevant, right? Not fantasy relevant. We're talking about DFS relevant. This week, he has Jair Alexander, who's just been a shutdown dude up against these stud, wide receivers on the outside. Chris Olave up against Jair Alexander. I'm not excited to play this week, especially at his price and his ownership. I'm just going to be fading Chris Olave. So that's a guy that I wanted to go and say, hey, I don't want to put in my lineups. Just pump the brakes on him. So let's go ahead and build another one. This one right here is our big lineup. This is a $250K single entry, $12 pot. So we want to put together some studs in this one. All right. We want to get some good guys in there. And the guy that I just want to throw out there, and you're probably going to hate it. You're probably going to tell me no, but I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant on my handwritten notebook, Jordan, that I put together. Okay. We have Justin Fields. Okay. I'm reading off my sheet. Justin Fields over the first 2 weeks this season has had 8 designed runs, 5 scrambles. Only one of those design runs, by the way, came in week 2, which was absolutely atrocious play calling, in my opinion. Last year alone, he started out with 12 designed runs. There was only 7 scrambles, so he only had 2 more scrambles, but essentially we're talking about 19 versus 13 rushing attempts. He averaged 5.2 across the season last year, even going through a little rut in weeks, I think it was 4 through 6. Now, he only eclipsed 20 points one time with at least 5 designed rushing attempts. All right. So we need 5 designed rush attempts minimum. But the bigger thing is he only had 5 performances that were DFS relevant, right? He might have hit 25 points, but it's 7K right now. He's sitting at 7,100. You need to hit that 25 points. You need to hit that 30 points. If you're not hitting those numbers, you're not doing anything for DFS at that pricing, right? Because he's so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So his rushing attempts inside of those 5 performances were 8, 13, 15, 15, and 18, right? You need to see those rushing attempts escalate significantly if you're going to get anything from Justin Fields. He only had 1 more than 23 attempts, passing attempts that was. Meanwhile, this past 2 games, he's seen 29 and over 30 passing attempts. So we don't want him passing the ball. We just don't want him doing it. He gets his value on the ground for those that are not woke, right, to the rushing game of Justin Fields. Now, last year he didn't have DJ Moore, of course. So I don't mind seeing an increase in passing attempts, but I don't want to see him passing 35, 40 times a game, right? I'm cool with 25. And honestly, it just feels like he hasn't been asked to do that. And we've seen that with Lamar Jackson in previous years, where he scrambled, but we haven't seen designed runs to start the season because they're trying to make him, we're going to try and make you pass the ball so that you can elongate your career, right? We're not going to ask you to run the ball because we feel like you can actually be a passing quarterback. Honestly, we saw it last week. That's not what Justin Fields is right now. He can be, right? Just like we're seeing to an extent with Lamar Jackson coming out last week. But we want to see this guy run.
Yeah.
With Chris Jones coming in, he could create some pressure on the exterior of the pockets, right? He could force Justin Fields to scramble. Maybe they call some design runs. Are you out on Justin Fields this week, or did I possibly just talk you into it? I mean, it's hopeful. It's wishful thinking, right? Because no matter what we see, what we want to happen doesn't mean that the coaches are going to do it.
Oh yeah. So if you believe that Justin Fields is going to get the designed runs, then playing Justin Fields and GPPs should be something you are doing. For me, with this week, with everything that's happened inside that building, I can't imagine the coaches playing to his side of things after he, again, quotes got taken out of context. Even with context, they didn't sound great. It didn't sound like he was saying that I'm getting coached and I need to play better. It was like, overall, everybody sucks. What are we doing here? I don't know if he's going to get that leash to, hey, you got to run the ball. The film from their offense, like they're running things that like coaches just never do. There was a QB school, I believe, broke down his first game. They ran a bootleg and pulled their left tackle to the opposite side of the field. For starters, they motioned their tight end across and bootlegged the other way, and then they pulled their left tackle. It was
that's something you might do the guard with. You could do the guard with that, but not the tackle. You don't do a swing tackle on a bootleg where where the quarterback's be faster than the tackle is.
Yeah, so it turned out that Justin Fields was just seeing a defensive end unblocked. And again, he's an amazing athlete. If you believe he's going to run, that's fine to play him. I can't buy into a 7,100 quarterback to do that. Just because if I want to play the quarterback that I think runs, it's Lamar, with the fact that Justice Hill's hurt, with the fact that J.K. Dobbins is obviously done for the season. So Lamar got more design runs last weekend, and now I'm thinking to myself, you're playing the Colts. The Colts aren't exactly the team that you need to run the ball against. However, with Melvin Gordon and Gus Edwards as your backfield, Lamar's probably the guy that can actually pick up some rushing yards in this one. So if I want to play a 7K quarterback, I think I'm going to Lamar Jackson. And I think from a cheaper build standpoint, him with like Paris Campbell, who I think had a 40% target per route run with Minshew back there, small sample size, but regardless, I think not Paris Campbell, sorry, Josh Downs. Josh Downs looks the part at 30 something hundred. Well, and like the Chiefs, if I'm playing Justin Fields, I have to play Travis Kelce. And now it's like I'm paying up for 7,100 quarterback and then a 79. I mean, it's Kelce, so it makes me feel better. But like, then I'm looking at the rest of my lineup, man. I got 2 3K players. My running backs are 5K. It's like Josh Kelly and Alexander Madison hoping that none of the passing options get there in that LA game. And it's like, I can't trust the Bears. Like, there's just so much wrong. Like, I agree.
It's scary. It's terrible, right?
If he runs, it's golden. If he just runs. But my God, can I not trust that? Watching them week 1 was like, man, hopefully they just went into that one sleepwalking. And then they came out and were worse in week 2. And I was like Javonte David in the post-game press conference. It's like,
yeah, that was crazy.
It's like they ran the same play 3 times in a row.
Did you see that interaction where they were like, yo, they're just not using you right, dog. Like, what are they doing? I wanted to chase after you and try and tackle you. Why are they using you right? And Just Fields is like, I know. They caught him on camera. Like, so, like this conversation happened in the middle of a timeout. Yeah. So, I mean, but that's where I feel like maybe they could. Now, I will say this Indianapolis Colts, have you seen the injury report for the Colts Ravens? It's a shit show. I'll read it off to you if you haven't seen it.
The Colts I know the Ravens have a ton of injuries. I didn't know the Colts side of things.
Let me go ahead and read this off to you real quick. So we have Odell Beckham Jr. out, Marlon Humphrey out, Ronnie Stanley out, Linderbaum out, Williams out, Marcus Williams, that is for the safety, Justin Hill out, Alway out, and then we go over to the Colts side of things. Anthony Richardson, of course, out. Ryan Kelly, the center, out. Quentin Nelson, questionable. Kenny Moore, which is the cornerback I was talking about earlier, questionable. Dallas Flowers, questionable. So, like, we're dealing with a very injury-laden slate, I should say game, right? Where it could be Lamar Jackson's show. Zay Flowers, I love. You were talking about, Zay Flowers being a little bit iffy on that. I love playing Zay Flowers this week. He's one of my locks that I didn't get to.
Yeah, no, Zay Flowers is for me it's just the weather. It's like if that tropical storm is really messing things up, I'm not gonna play him.
Well, no, this is the perfect chance to play Zay Flowers because everybody is hating on Zay Flowers right? Like I was sitting there talking about this the other day. Somebody said, 9 of his 13 receptions have been behind the line of scrimmage. I'm like, well, 16% of Puka Williams' targets have been beyond 10 yards. Or isn't that like the same thing? It's dump offs, drag routes versus like screenplays, and screenplays are typically more efficient than a drag route. So I would much rather have Zay Flowers at this point than Puka, just because of the ownership levels.
Yeah, no, I'd like with Zay, like he's getting the ball. Like Last week was probably the worst matchup he had, because Mike Hilton's really good. Fun fact, he's one of the best. When you couldn't take advantage of him in the slot, and then on the boundary, the way that Lou Anarumo plays things, it's just not ideal. But regardless, he got a slot fade on I think it was Mike Hilton, if I'm not mistaken, where he killed him. He's just so shifty. He's so good. It's easy to run that, and then, I mean, I am in love with Josh Downs at the price. Minshew is going to target whoever's kind of open quickest. I don't think Minshew's coming in this game to get hit ever. And Josh Downs has looked every bit of what I thought he was in college, and they're putting him in the right role. And that's how Shane Steichen is. Like, he's just a guy this is how we're going to run our guys. We're not going to get creative with him. It's not like we're going to take a dude who runs fast and we're going to make him run short. It's like, no, he's just going to run deep. Josh Downs is just going to run short.
I will say real quick, just Gardner Minshew himself. Don't forget what he did with TJ Chark, before DJ Chark ended up having some issues, right? And then we saw him last year on the outside in the boundaries, passing the borderline. So I don't hate Pittman in this lineup either. And keep in mind, everybody that's listening, these lineups aren't made to just to give you the lineup that's going to win, right? We're giving you the skeleton to a lineup that you can switch up, right? You can switch out the defenses. On the last one, if you wanted to play the New York Jets defense and you wanted to run the other route, you can do that. We're just giving you options, and we're telling you what the good moves to do inside of the skeleton build for the DFS lineups are. So we're not telling you what's in, it's in cement. Just keep that in mind when you're building your lineups. We're just giving you the skeleton. All right, so we do have Lamar Jackson there. I threw Zay Flowers in there, and then you want Joshua Downs. We're doing Joshua Downs. We're rolling with that. And Joshua Downs and Zay Flowers both give us just phenomenal budget to work with throughout the rest. We're sitting at 5,500. Let's go ahead and put a placeholder defense in there like we did last time. We'll go with the Jets again, just to give us something, right?
We know where we're at.
They're middle of the road. Yeah, exactly. So we're sitting at 6K for the rest of our lineups. This could actually be one where we fit in a Kelsey tight end. I mean, we could if you want to, but we could also go heavy on the running backs. I would love to see a lineup with Justin Jefferson as well. Not going to lie. Where are you feeling we should go after this? Are we thinking more running back, wide receiver, tight end? Where do you want to go?
If you want to go tight end, that's fine with me. I don't know if you want to punt it or if you want to play Kelsey. Just a rule of thumb, I'm never playing TJ Hawkinson as a one-off. He's just way too correlated to Kirk Cousins touchdowns. And if I'm playing a 7,700 Lamar, I do not want Kirk Cousins to be throwing a lot of touchdowns in that game. So I'm not going to play a 6,500 TJ Hawkinson. I'm going to say this guy's name, and I thought he was going to be more popular than he is. He's not, and it sounds gross, but
Ew, am I about to puke on live the live show?
Taysom Hill at 3,300.
I hate it and I love it too.
They're
going to utilize them, right?
You're not you don't like Chris Olave. You're telling me that the passing game is not going to be there. Last week, Taysom Hill ran for 75 yards. They gave him the goal line work because Jamal Williams isn't there. You're going to tell me that Kendre Miller is going to get the goal line work over Taysom Hill? I don't think so. I don't think Kendre Miller is a goal line back. And if you're telling me that I get to play a tight end that runs the ball for 3,300, that's one of the guys that this week I'm still trying to figure it out, but he's not owned at all. Luke Musgrave is coming in 10% from some of the sites I'm seeing. You have Durham Smythe at 16% for God knows why.
Why?
I just because Jalen Waddle's supposed to be out, so Tua has to throw the ball to him. But regardless,
oh my God, he is. He is.
Yeah, a 3,300 Taysom Hill is like, I like him because of how ugly it is, and just truly, he's gonna run the ball, man. Like, I'm getting a running back at tight end.
God, I hate this so much. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, this is so gross, dude.
It's such a gross. Trust me. I mean, again, if you want to just jam in Kelsey, we could jam in Kelsey. But if you want to play a punt tight end, my punt tight end is just Taysom Hill this week.
Oh my God, is there any other one that we can talk about?
I mean, like, Kincaid has the weather,
it's
man.
So gross, man. Yeah. Oh God, I can't. This is the big tournament. This is our number one lineup we're supposed to be playing right now.
That's what I'm saying. That's the perfect one to play him in. Like, he had 8 last week. And that's with goal line touches. And by the way, against the Carolina Panthers on the last carry he had, he slid down after he got the first down. He could have he could have had 100 yards rushing.
But they didn't have Kendre Miller.
Yeah.
But I mean, even so, Dalton Kincaid put up 9 points last week. Musgrave sucked last week. That's right. Kincaid still beat. Let's leave the tight end position blank. Let's leave the tight end position blank. I'll tell you what, if we get to the point where like we're maxing out and all we have left is 33, let's go with Taysom Hill. Let's do that. Let's because I think Kincaid's a few $100s more. Let's go ahead and let's go with Taysom Hill and say screw it, because this is the big contest, right? This is the thing that you need to differentiate your lineups from every other one. And Taysom Hill will probably see less than 1% ownership. So I love it.
Shouldn't be owned. Yeah, no, I agree.
I love that concept. And honestly, it already entered into my mind up until they said Kendre Miller was healthy. But I don't hate it. All right. It's just so gross. All right, let's go to the running back position. I love me some Bijan Robinson, some Jahmyr Gibbs. We've already done. We can do them again if we want. I think that Travis Etienne is interesting, but with the injuries to Houston, that really opens up some opportunities for Trevor Lawrence and company to actually put up big time fantasy points. So I'm not as locked into Travis Etienne as I was earlier in the week. Like Derek Stingley's out. Their top 2 corners are out.
Yeah.
So, and I think their safety from last week was out as well.
Yeah, I think it's Petre's out. I don't know if Jimmy Ward's still out. I don't remember. But you did mention you wanted to get a Justin Jefferson lineup. I don't mind going chalk and playing Kelly and Jefferson if you want to go that many. Josh Kelly and
you know what? That's good. Let's play that right now.
Just because if you want to get the Justin Jefferson in there, that's a fine one. That's a fine way to do it. I mean, the only thing I'm worried about with Jefferson is if Asante Samuel actually gets matched up with him a lot. Mike McDaniel pointed out to everybody in the NFL, hey, just don't throw at him. Throw at JC Jackson. It works.
Yeah.
He threw out Asante Samuel in the first game that they played last year, and it destroyed a lot of their movement on offense. This year, 2 threw for 4, whatever. Asante Samuel never saw a target. Asante Samuel never had an opportunity to make a play on a ball or be in coverage against any of those players, and they were never the first read. So
Asante doesn't shadow, right?
No, it's just a matter of if he ends up being matched out there, because the Vikings are going to run a lot of 12 because everybody thought that they were going to go with, we saw Adam Thielen run the second most routes, so Jordan Addison has to be the guy. And it's like, no, they signed Josh Oliver to $7 million. Sorry, $7 million a year. Like this, they're paying like $18 million to tight ends. They're going to just use them. They're kind of like a hybrid between San Fran and Miami in terms of the way they think of their offense. It's just going to be a matter of time before Addison beats out KJ Osborne. That's who he has to beat out. But
all right, I'm down for that. Let's roll with Justin Jefferson for now, and hopes that he can still produce. He's not matched up against Asante Samuel, but we're kind of in a little bit of position, right? We're in a pickle because we want to go up to tight end. There are a couple running backs that we can play this week. You know, Gus Edwards, right? Gus Edwards is going to be the only running back over there for the Ravens. And I know that he doesn't correlate with Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers, but Zay Flowers can get there without getting a touchdown. Yeah. Like we could see Gus Edwards get there with 50 yards and a couple touchdowns. Lamar Jackson gets there with a touchdown pass to Zay Flowers or even Mark Andrews, and he rushes 1 in or maybe 2 in, depending on how high this game is. But is Gus Edwards an automatic no because we already have Lamar Jackson in our lineups?
In a way, just because of like normally I wouldn't say no for a quarterback, but when it comes to Lamar, he hits the ceiling by rushing. So like a rushing touchdown from Gus Edwards most likely kills the Lamar Jackson being optimal in a GPP. Like if it were Kirk Cousins, I wouldn't mind playing Alexander Madison.
That's actually a great point.
If it just depends on the style of quarterback and how they get to, like, we need Lamar to score 30. So he needs that rushing touchdown.
Can I ask you another question real quick? How is Ezekiel Elliott still priced at 5,200? Like he's priced at 5,200. He hasn't done anything all season. I mean, his ownership can't be existent, right? Like, there's no way.
It's non-existent. It shouldn't be. Like, if it is, it's a problem.
Like, why is he at 5,200? That is so bizarre.
I don't know. I will say if you want to go like one of those cheap options to get to Kelsey, I think a mini in that game that's unique and gross is Roshan with Travis Kelce, because Roshan, he plays all the garbage time work. That's just what he gets, and he's been good in that garbage time. So there's a chance that he actually plays with real starters, and he is 4,700, and he's the path to getting the, the Travis Kelce of the world, and also sticking to maybe the Bears getting some run game going. Maybe Justin Fields, if he doesn't get those design runs, that's the guy who's getting the ball.
And the Chiefs have been bottom 5 for the past 3 years. They've been tracking for the dump off containment efficiency score. It scores running backs and their ability to, scores defenses and their ability to contain pass catching running backs. Chiefs have been brutal at it because they typically go down anyways, and they end up seeing a ton of targets. Meanwhile, they're still trying to blitz. It creates opportunities for big plays for running backs. I actually don't hate that, and it was not on my radar. So I'm going to play that, and I appreciate you for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things that if you want to play Kelce, we got to get a little fancy here, and that's the way to get fancy.
That's interesting. All right, so we have Lamar Jackson, Joshua Kelly, Roshan Johnson, Zay Flowers, Joshua Downs, Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce. This feels like a cash game lineup. The Jets defense. We need somebody at the 4K range, my friend, and I feel like this is where your specialty lies, is finding that 4K guy that could make this lineup boom.
I will say, you said boom. You led me up to a great, and I was about to say his name, and that's not a boom. He's just the guy that gets us
Jake
points.
Funk. No,
I was gonna say Adam Thielen, and saying boom and his name in the same sentence just feels gross. So I don't want to. But regardless, I will say Adam Thielen's a super strong play for me this week. It's again. The Seattle Seahawks are allowing you to throw the ball. Their run defense with Draymond Jones has stopped what we saw previously. And Adam Thielen is, again, the Seattle plays soft, they play zone coverage, and they play it at a high rate. If Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't have the foot injury he was dealing with, he would have been all over it. But he got banged up. He was going in and out of that game. He wasn't exactly running at his level. And as a result, Josh Reynolds had like 2 touchdowns and went crazy in that game. Thielen, I get it. I know Bryce Young isn't playing. I know that the Panthers offense hasn't been good. The dude knows how to work his own coverage. And the Saints, they play a ton of man, and Atlanta played a ton of man. The Saints didn't bring Marshawn Lattimore much inside. AJ Terrell went inside in that Atlanta game to some extent. So I think Adam Thielen in this matchup against Seattle, he's just Andy Dalton's got to be best friend. That's what I'm assuming he's going to be.
What's funny is in my show notes last week, it was, if you think Puka Nacua is good against Seattle, you see what Amon-Ra St. Brown can do. And so it's just funny, like, that he ended up dealing with an injury, and that one didn't produce as highly as we thought he would. But he was dealing with an injury. Like you said, he was in and out of the lineup. Adam Thielen walks into a very similar situation. And Mingo, who I don't love, is interesting just because he has played a decent amount of the slot. But I think Adam Thielen could be that guy.
Yeah, I just think he's just the one that knows his own coverage. And again, veteran Andy Dalton, veteran Adam Thielen. I'm certain he's going to target him. Oh, you got to put in Thielen. You didn't press the plus.
I was like, wait, what? I'm glad that you saw that. All right, so we do have our lineup here. We have Lamar Jackson, Joshua Kelly, Roshan Johnson, Zay Flowers, Joshua Downs, Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce, Adam Thielen, and the Jets defense. This is just funny, man, because this just feels like the lineup that could absolutely just hammer home, but it's so risky. It's one of the riskiest lineups I've built. It's a messy game with Baltimore and Indianapolis. It's a messy situation with the Chiefs and how we expect the running back position to go. We're playing Adam Thielen as a boom guy, like you brought up. I mean,
you set me up. I was like, I'm hoping he says safety. Like, what makes our lineup safe? And I was like, Adam Thielen, he's gonna get us at least 16. Like he's just, again, I touted him as a fantasy player that I was buying into, and because of how late he was going, he's like 3,900 is just disrespectful. Like I get it. I get that he's not very like where he
just
is.
Put up 20 points.
Yeah, but we're looking at Alan Lazard with Zach Wilson at 4,700. Why? What's the difference? Why is that the case? It doesn't make any sense to me.
All right. So we are in there. We are ready to build one more lineup. You know what? We're going to be wrong about some things. We're going to be right about some things, right? So what you need to do is you need to figure out whether we're right or wrong. Not you, Jordan, but the people that are listening. You guys need to figure out whether we're right or wrong this upcoming Monday with the First Mover podcast. They review everything that happened from this past week as they look forward to the next week. Make sure y'all go check out the Mover podcast, the First Mover podcast over there on Roto Underworld. I'm ready for our next lineup, Jordan. But before we get into lineups, let's talk about our sleepers for this week. And I'm going to just start it with a precursor. We got to run through this a little bit. I got to rush just slightly because we are running out of time. Mm-hmm. Sam Howell, I absolutely love. He's done nothing but impress, in terms of fantasy points. He looks terrible back there. He looks like he's processing about the same speed as my Mac computer that I bought in 2013 and still use this day. It's bad. But he still is making fantasy points relevant. And with this matchup up against the Bills, I think that he could flush the pockets, get a ton of rushing upside. Meanwhile, they've picked on some of these individual cornerbacks inside the red zone or inside the 30-yard line, I should say, giving touchdowns to, or Tre'Davious White giving touchdowns to wide receivers 2 consecutive weeks in a row. Meanwhile, CJ Stroud, who has just thrown way more than necessary, but it's because they can't get the run game started, has an incredible matchup, and I think that he needs to be considered when trying to build these stud lineups. Pivoting down to either one of those guys in the 5K range could absolutely leave you with enough money to play pretty much anybody that you want. I don't even think you need to stack Sam Howell with anybody, but you can if you would like to. I think it makes for an interesting lineup. But yeah, I mean, last week we saw the winner was Brock Purdy. The winner of the Millie Maker played Brock Purdy. He only got 14 points. I mean, Sam Howell's beaten that each week by at least 4 points or more. You can get there by playing cheap quarterbacks from time to time if you can play some of these studs. So I think either one of those guys are in there. Rasheed Rice without Kadarius Toney is interesting. And you said you didn't like Craycraft. I don't mind him as a sleeper up against Mathis, who is just given up points over there at the opposite cornerback, location.
Yep.
So, you ready to talk about your sleepers and why your sleepers exist?
Yeah, I mean, for me, my sleeper, Brandon Cooks. The Cardinals put their safety over the slot. CeeDee Lamb plays a ton of the slot, but I think Brandon Cooks, if he can get back on the field this weekend, I love pairing him with Dak Prescott lineups, him, CeeDee, and Dak, just because of the big play opportunity throughout his career is always there. And then it's getting a little bit more popular than it was when I first looked, but the Geno double stack with Metcalf and Lockett. As a Panthers fan, we live in single high coverages. DK Metcalf over the last 2 years has like a 32% target share with Geno Smith and on single high coverages. I know that Derek Carr didn't get it to Chris Olave and some of the other guys against this past Monday night, but Olave got bracketed pretty well. And I think if we're going to bracket someone, bracket Tyler Lockett and try to hold up against DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf had single high a few times against the Rams, and you can go back to his touchdown play against Kobe Durant. That's kind of what the coverage looks like. And in our situation, it would be Dante Jackson. We saw Michael Thomas have like 7 catches this game. DK Metcalf can run a slant. He can run it probably better than Michael Thomas at this point in their careers. And if he does that, he catches it in free space, he could probably break one. So Metcalf, Lockett, Geno as a double stack is one of the ones that I will be writing up. And I think Geno actually is my week 3 graphic, which is a year anniversary of my week 3 big win last year with Geno Smith. So it's pretty fitting, especially now that he's doing it against my favorite team. Oh, you're muted.
Cool. I said I feel like you're a little bit biased on this, but let's go ahead and let's build a lineup. But let's go ahead and do you want to do the Patrick Mahomes one? Do you want to do a Geno Smith one? Do you want to do a Sam Howell, CJ Stroud one? Where are we feeling?
I've picked quarterback. I feel like you should. Which quarterback do you want to rock with yours? Because I feel like I've picked quarterback the first 2, and I feel like you need your quarterback lineup out there. You can pick whoever you'd like.
You know what? I would love to do Sam Howell just because I feel like Washington's going to be down at some point. It's going to be messy. We might not see any targets on field. I kind of want to run a Sam Howell out, just butt ass naked in the middle of a hurricane. We're in a tropical storm, I should say. Let's run out Sam Howell butt ass naked in a tropical storm and see how it goes.
I mean, if you want to do that, that works with me. I mean, again, Sam Howell doesn't need a lot. I think if you want to get cute with it, you can go to one of their tight ends because Logan Thomas, I believe, is out, and just play Cole Turner for 2,700 as a punt.
I love Cole Turner, but it was John Bates last week who's normally the blocker.
Yeah, I mean, they're both kind of just out there. I mean, if you want to go John Bates, that's fine with me. They're both just average guys. Cole Turner's a converted receiver, though. I think with like the extra week of practice, and I mean, in preseason, he was the guy. That's like the crazy thing.
God, CJ Stroud too up against Jacksonville with all the injuries in that game. Like the injuries are actually advantageous for that matchup versus the previous ones we talked about where they're missing offensive linemen and stuff.
Yeah,
the injuries for the Houston-Jacksonville game actually advantageous to a faster pace game than what we're seeing. You know what? I'm going to go CJ Stroud.
Okay.
I'm going to go CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud and Tank Dell, I'm assuming.
Yeah, let's do Tank Dell for sure. And then I would like to run it back with one of the more expensive guys. We do have Zay Jones out. So I think it's going to essentially funnel the targets into one of three guys, right? We're going to have either Evan Ingram, we're going to have Calvin Ridley, or we're going to have Christian Kirk. Now, we do have both of the cornerbacks and one or two of the safeties out for this game. So, I mean, Calvin Ridley seems like the home run to go for this. Resurgence week after a bad one, but I mean, there are going to be lineups where I play Trevor Lawrence with a double stack of both these guys for sure. Where are you feeling with this? Where do you want to go at wide receiver as a run back?
I would rather have Calvin Ridley than Christian Kirk. Last week I faded Ridley. This week I am buying into the cheaper or the less popular side of him. And again, yes, Zay Jones is out, which means Calvin is going to own the deep route tree for this Jacksonville Jaguars attack. And that's how they got to get their offense jump started. They need some deep shots. And again, D'Amico Ryans plays a lot of 2-eye, but Calvin runs the post or posting / corners at the highest rate. One of the best in the NFL at it. So he can split those safeties and get open deep.
Yeah. And that makes it interesting with Travis Etienne, who's expensive, but we could assume a script where Jacksonville goes up early. You know, they just completely dominate, and then Etienne gets the rock. Now, it makes me nervous with Tank Bigsby a little bit, but would you like to play Travis Ridley in this lineup and just do pretty much a double run back?
If you want to do the double run back, because at the end of the day, that's how you win. That's like everybody gets terrified. We're like, we're playing 2 players on the other team. We're playing 4 players in the same game. It's like, yeah, if you get the game script right, you make a lot of money. The week that I had Geno Smith, I played Geno, Metcalf, Lockett, and I ran it back with TJ Hawkinson. In hindsight, if I play Rashad Penny instead of Tyler Lockett, and I even add Amon-Ra St. Brown, then I would have won the Millie. I would have won every contest that I played because I also played a 0.5% J.K. Dobbins at 25. So you can play 2 players in the same game. This game needs to be probably 21 to 35-40 in favor of Jacksonville. But with the pricing of Tank Dell and Stroud, you don't even need a crazy shootout.
That's the biggest thing, right? Like it's risky because it's only a 44-point over/under, but we're still figuring this out at the beginning of the season, right? Vegas, is playing very cautiously at 44 points, and at an offense, both offenses that have been somewhat stalled out. Which, by the way, dude, Trevor Lawrence should have had 4 touchdowns last week if his receivers could learn how to put both feet in bounds. Yep. So I mean, it should have been it should have been a blowout up against Kansas City last week. It wasn't, but I think that this game could be on the verge of the highest scoring game on the slate, only though it's at 44 points. And with the running back side for Houston over there just completely stalling out, we could look at a great matchup. So let's go ahead and lock these guys in. This gives us a decent amount. Let's go back to the defense again, put in a placeholder. We'll go back to the Jets just to have it there in the mid-range.
Yep, that works for me.
All right, we're sitting at 6K for the rest of our lineups. We've been talking about Travis Kelce like all night, right? We ended up squeezing him into a lineup. This does not feel like the lineup that I want to put Travis Kelce in. How about you?
I agree. I think the lineup that we already had is kind of fitting for that. And it's like, it feels like position where we can kind of punt that tight end position, or get, again, if you want to get correlated to CJ Stroud's touchdowns. I mean, Dalton Schultz is running a ton of routes, so Dalton Schultz at 3,700 isn't a bad play. 230 sub 4K players with our quarterback, all correlated, makes a ton of sense.
If he's throwing 50 passes a game, we could easily get a touchdown out of Schultz. I love that. I went ahead and put him in there.
Perfect. So now we're at 6,800. So
God, we have so much money now.
I will say the one core, again, we talked about earlier, Jahmyr Gibbs with Bijan would be awesome to get to. I know Gibbs, and I know you mentioned Gibbs early in the show. One thing I'll add from a stat perspective, the Atlanta Falcons are averaging, or teams are averaging, like 2.7 yards per carry in between the guards against the Atlanta Falcons, but off tackle / outside, they're averaging 5.7 yards per carry. What are you going to do with Gibbs? You're going to run the ball outside, so I'm going to give Gibbs that kind of work, and the Falcons haven't been able to stop it, contain the edges. It's like Bud Dupree, and I forgot who else is out there, but interior, they have like 900 pounds from D tackle to D tackle. I don't want to run on that.
I just got I cannot stand up in front of the camera right now because I got so excited. I threw Gibbs into the lineup after you're saying that. I just went ahead and threw Bijan just to see what we had left. 6,100 left to the flex position.
Perfect.
Cannot get up right now. I cannot show our audience what's hanging out down below. So let's go ahead and let's throw in whatever guy we want at wide receiver at 6K or above. I don't even know that it needs to correlate. It could be a one-off. It could be somebody that, like Mike Williams, I think would be perfect up against Minnesota. We watched Mike Williams do wonderful things up against Minnesota. We have Amari Cooper up against a pass funnel defense with Tennessee. DJ Moore could do something up against Kansas City. What are you feeling?
I think Mike Williams fits perfectly into this. We're already unique with playing CJ Stroud / the rest of the Texans there. You don't need to, when you're playing a few unique guys, you don't need to go crazy and fade the chalk. It's like sometimes chalk works. Chalk has hit fairly often throughout my years in DFS. You just have to find the one or two guys that separate you, and we have that with Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz. Like if those guys hit, then it doesn't matter how owned everybody else is. We're already positive. Yeah,
the CJ Stroud lineups are likely going to be playing either Nico Collins, most likely Nico Collins, or Tank Dell, or Dalton Schultz. The lineups with CJ Stroud and Dalton Schultz and Tank Dell are slim. And then when you talk about a double run back, not just a single run back, a double run back with Travis Etienne and Calvin Ridley, that's most likely not going to be out there in the public, in the wild, ready to just go ham. We're probably going to be the only one in this single entry, by the way, the single entry lineup. You might see it once or twice in the Millie Maker, maybe, but you're pretty much going to be by yourself. Yeah, but I love it, man. I love it, man. I'm in. I am in there. This is awesome. All right. Let's go ahead. Let's hit enter. Oh, I entered one of the contests already. I'll go ahead and enter it in as soon as we finish off this stream. Jordan, man, how you feeling about our lineups tonight? Which one did you like the most? Which one did you feel a little bit skeptical about?
I like the Lamar Jackson one the most. That one was able to jam some of the studs in and find its way to a weird, just contrarian build off of the slate whilst keeping the high upside guys in it. I think a Roshan, Travis Kelce, Mini is one of the ones that Fields just not going to get to. Everybody likes to play a receiver with a tight end and an expected blowout in that type of way. I don't think that's necessarily the case. And also Lamar without Mark Andrews is a intriguing play for sure. I think the one that I would guess it would be like it's boom or bust is that CJ Stroud one. It's very correlated to one game where if that game fails, the lineup fails. But again, that's how DFS is. If you don't have the best game, like I didn't play a ton of the Miami Chargers game in week 1. That was not the game that I expected it to go. I expected Teron Armstead being out to matter. Fun fact, it doesn't matter that he doesn't play because Miami just doesn't. Tua just throws the ball way too fast. It doesn't and he somehow throws it far. It's really interesting when people I don't think people realize that he's throwing it in 2.2 seconds and his A dot is 11 yards. That's just not correlated. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It's insane. Like we've looked at the correlation last night. I think it was Brock Purdy made an adjustment. His A dot was like 6 or something like that at the time that I was looking at it. And I was like, wait, his A dot is 6. And he's getting rid of it in 2.2 seconds. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And then you look at Tua's and it's like 2.2 and it's double the A dot. It just it doesn't make any scientific sense whatsoever. It'll be one of those very few that we'll ever see in NFL history be that high. So I love that. All right, Jordan, let everybody know where to find you before we get out of here, man. We got a handful of people listening in, so let them know where to go.
You can follow me on Twitter at Jordan Vanek DFS. You'll see all my content at the33rdteam.com. My main slate article with my player pool. And then we have a top plays sheet that's a collaboration between Josh Larkey, Ryan Reynolds, and Mark Garcia, as known as Hilo. Cover 5 shows where you'll see me on YouTube over at the 33rd Team fantasy side of things. So be sure to check out, subscribe. Appreciate anybody that listens in, and feel free to tag me on Twitter, ask me questions. I'm pretty open about my process, and hopefully when I'm winning money, you're winning money as well.
Absolutely love it, man. You guys can go check out all of our content over there at PlayerProfiler.com. You guys can find me over there on Twitter at FF_intervention. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you all for letting us intervene with your DFS life. We're out of here.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.